Hey guys, this is Hannah. Thank you so much for watching our first Is It Bad video. You guys left a bunch of awesome comments, so I'm going to respond to a few now, and we're going to do this every other week. The videos drop every other Saturday, so on the week where there isn't a video, we'll address a few comments and talk a little bit about what we discussed in the video. Today, we're going to talk about our knife sharpening video. A couple questions. One, I thought this is really important. Is it bad to eat paper? Yeah, it's bad. And two, is it bad to, use knives to stab at my many emotional problems? That's also bad. You should just be kind to yourself. It's a lot better. And all right, one thing we didn't mention in the video that a couple of you guys brought up and is a really good point is you can get your knives professionally sharpened. If you don't want to deal with it yourself, some people, my sister, actually the noise is like nails on a chalkboard to her. She has to run out of the room when I'm doing it. So if you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to buy a thing, you can take them out to get them professionally sharpened. It's typically like $2 to $5 a blade. It kind of depends, but it's cheap. And certain manufacturers like Shun actually, they have a lifetime sharpening thing, so you can send your knife to them at any time and they'll sharpen it for free. You have to pay for shipping. I think it's like $5 for the first knife, $2 for each additional blade. Pretty reasonable, but then you don't have your knives. They're off getting sharpened for however long it takes to ship there and ship back, so something to think about. Another thing a lot of you guys brought up was the fact that sharpening can be hard on your knives. And it's true, like by nature, sharpening will take off a little bit of metal from the blade, but it's not like, every time you sharpen your knife gets littler and littler and littler. It's not that bad. But if you have super, super fancy knives, super expensive knives, a family knife that's been passed down from generation to generation, you want to be super careful with it, then yeah, you should be conscious of how much you're sharpening your knife. And an electric sharpener will take off more metal than a manual sharpener, more metal than a whetstone. So it's something you want to think about. You have to kind of have to decide how precious you want to be about your knives. Not that it's a bad thing to take care of a fancy knife. Like that's cool if you want to be careful about it. But it's also not bad to just make sure that your knives are sharp. Bob Kramer, master bladesmith, he came in to talk to us a couple years ago, and it was really interesting. So his knives are gorgeous, and they can cost like from $300 up to over $1,000 a knife. So it's something you really want to be careful with. And I asked him, how often do you sharpen your knife? And he said he hones his knife every day before he uses it, he hones it. And he sharpens his knife twice a year, which was kind of interesting. And I said, are you worried? Like, I would be worried putting one of your really fancy knives into a sharpener. And he said, no, like, these are consumables. Knives are supposed to be used. They're supposed to be functional. You're supposed to be able to use them in your kitchen. You want them to be sharp. So keeping it like wrapped up in a precious little box and worrying so much about it, like that's not what they're meant to be used. They're a tool. So you just want to, be conscious of how you care for them. If it's super fancy, be mindful in how much you're sharpening it. But a sharp knife that's used a lot is better than, something that's wrapped up in a silk box somewhere and you never even see it. And there was another question that came up in the comments. It's not knife related, but I thought it was really interesting. Is it bad to add minced garlic first to a pan? Because you might notice I've definitely done this. I actually burn garlic like all the time. So this is a helpful reminder for me too. I burned some last night. But, should you add minced garlic first where it can possibly scorch, or should you save it for later? And I talked to Lon, who is on America's Test Kitchen. She's a test cook on Cooks Illustrated here. And she had an interesting answer that's pretty informative. She said it depends on two things, like how big is the garlic cut? If it's minced really small, like yeah, it might cook too fast. But if it's whole cloves, half cloves, roughly the same size of the other vegetable in the pan, you might be okay. And the other thing she said to consider is how much food is in the pan. If there's a lot of food there, things are going to cook slower, and minced garlic will probably cook in time with everything else. But if there's not a lot of things, if it's just a little bit of oil and garlic like I did last night, and you walk away to multitask, then yeah, it's probably going to burn. And another thing, we had an awesome question from Sandy Lee about gunked up sheet pans. And Sandy must be psychic because we're actually on this question already. So stay tuned. It'll come out in September, the video on is it bad if your sheet pans are all gunked up, what you can do about it, what you should do about it. Maybe you shouldn't do anything. So stay tuned. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to check out next week's video, which is it bad if my enameled pots and pans are chipped? We'll find out. Thanks so much.